Good evening. Welcome to Grand Blanc Township Board meeting for Tuesday, May 14th. If we could all rise for the pledge, please. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Clerk Robertson, would you please call the roll?
I would be happy to. Trustee Hugo.
Here.
Trustee Fike.
Here.
Trustee Raridan. Absent. Trustee White.
Here.
Treasurer Kilmer.
Here.
Myself, of course, I'm here. Supervisor Bennett.
Yes, here.
6 members present, a quorum.
Thank you. And now I'll entertain a motion for approval of the agenda. If somebody cares to make that motion, Mr. Fike makes the motion.
Motion by
supported Mr. White.
Fike, supported by White on the agenda. Trustee Hugo.
Yes.
Trustee White.
Yes.
Trustee Fike.
Yes.
Myself, yes. Treasurer Kilmer.
Yes.
Supervisor Bennett.
Yes.
6-0, motion passes.
Okay, thank you. And now we will open the floor for public comment. I don't know if anybody, I know we have one public comment form up here, but does anybody else care to make public comment that's here this evening?
I think that's for the public hearing.
Okay. We will continue on with the meeting. We do have a public hearing here in just a moment, so if you're here to speak on the resolution that we're looking at, then you'll have another opportunity then. So we'll close public comment for anything on the agenda and move to item number 5, which is a public hearing. And the public hearing will be, the board will hold a public hearing to consider adopting the resolution to create Industrial Development District 15-2. Mr. Lemata?
So the board is opening up the public hearing at this time to take comments regarding the creation of the Industrial Development District. All of the parcels within this proposed Industrial Development District reside within the Grand Blanc Enterprise Park, which is the new development off of Baldwin Road to the north and bordered by I-75. After you receive any public comment today, then later on the agenda under new business, there's a resolution which would establish the Industrial Development District if you were so inclined.
Okay. Any questions, concerns, thoughts?
I do.
Fike?
What is this?
Industrial Development District, Trustee Fike, is a mechanism that municipalities can use that was created by the state of Michigan through a public act that allows us to designate parcels or areas. Right now, we have Industrial Development District that is on the east and west sides of South Holly, south of Baldwin Road, where most of our industrial development is, the Magnas and DAG and those other industries there. What the creation of the Industrial Development District allows you to do is then people with who are considered putting a business in there have the opportunity to come to the board to do an application for a tax abatement. So the tax abatement, you have to be a qualifying entity, you have to offer so many jobs, so many dollars of investment, and then based on those, somebody could submit an application and ask you for that tax abatement. They could qualify for up to 50% tax abatement and up to 12 years as far as you can do it. That application has to follow the Industrial Development District. We do have someone who's interested in submitting an application, actually 2 entities who have inquired about submitting a application for a tax abatement. So you have to, the first step is to create the development district, and then we receive the applications. The board would then consider those applications, see if it meets the criteria that the board has established for qualification for that abatement. And then if you approve it, it goes to the state treasurer, and then the treasurer reviews all of that information. It's completely up to the state treasurer to determine whether they move that forward or not. Because the taxing entities are impacted, so all taxing entities in the county who are impacted by that tax abatement, they receive notification of any application, because then they have the opportunity to obviously comment and weigh in on it because they're also impacted by that 50% reduction. So as the applications come forward, you create the district, an applicant comes, says, I'm really interested in doing it. You guys make sure they hit the parameters. You determine whether or not you want to move it forward. And then, like I said, you send it to the state. State ultimately makes the decision on whether it's granted or not.
And is our litmus test for granting this jobs and investment?
Yeah, I mean, obviously, we use it as a tool, especially townships, because we don't have as much ability that cities have to create investment opportunities. Like, they can do so many more things than we can as a township. So we're kind of limited on what we can do. We can come up with some brownfield zones. We can come up with a DDA or, corridor improvement authority. It really is. It's about creating tools that allow you to encourage investment into your community.
Okay. Thank you.
Any other questions, concerns? Okay, we will, at this time, then go ahead and open the floor for any public comment on the proposed resolution, Industrial Development District number 15-2. Does anybody care to make comment with regard to the industrial district? Again, we use it to bring jobs and investment to our township, and so far it's done exactly that. Okay,
I would definitely be in favor of it because it does promote jobs and development in our township.
absolutely. Okay, well, seeing no public comment, I will close the public comment, and we'll bring it here back to the board. And
7 p.m. Close the comment period at 6:07 p.m., Mr. Supervisor.
any further comment from the board before we move on? Okay, at this time, I'll entertain a motion for approval of the consent agenda. If somebody cares to make that motion. Mr. Kilmer, supported by Ms. Hugo.
Motion by Kilmer, support by Hugo. Trustee Fike?
Yes.
Trustee White? Yes. Trustee Hugo?
Yes.
Treasurer Kilmer?
Yes.
Myself, yes. Supervisor Bennett?
Yes.
6-0, motion passes.
Thank you. Now, under number 7, old business strategic plan update, we're going to discuss our pension and OPEB funding. I think Mr. Limita has some news that we briefly shared at a prior meeting with regard to the actuarial.
Yeah, I think the exciting thing, and I kind of alluded to it 2 weeks ago, but Foster & Foster, our actuary for our post-employment benefits program for our retiree health care, completed this for a fiscal year ending December 31st of 2023. I think, like I said, the biggest news is that when you look at how we have performed with the board, especially your focus has been to pay down our OPEB and to make sure that we address the legacy costs for both pension and healthcare. This is only regarding our retiree healthcare, and our police pension will be addressed in June when we get the report from MERS. But for this one, we're really happy to say that the funded ratio as of December 31st of 2023 was 95.97%, so 96% funded. Again, I'd just like to remind the board that in the actuary valuation that would have ended on December 31st of 2015, you were 13% funded. You had about a $41 million total liability at that time. Your total liability with this measurement is $28,530,000. So by closing the programs, having employees participate in retirement, the changes that we made such a huge difference that your total liability also came down. So you're talking about, taking tens of millions of dollars off of your total liability because you've capped it now, and now you've got a reasonable expectation of how much you're going to pay moving forward. The biggest thing to point out, I think, is the fact that because you continue to pay much more than the annual required contribution, because again, if you remember legally, you're only required to pay, you've got to cover those current costs. You don't have to pay it down. But if you recall, Public Act 202 put much bigger focus on it. The state of Michigan legislatures realized that this was not getting reported like it would on your annual financial statements because this liability was kind of back there, but it wasn't addressed. Now it is addressed, and in fact, when they first came out with Public Act 202, we had to report a corrective action plan because we were below the threshold of funding. We were only on it for a year and made such, like I said, we were making such huge strides, but you're always looking backwards because the actuarial study that now you're at 96% funded, incredibly strong for your retiree health care. What this really means is that through your actions and making it a continued focus as part of your strategic planning initiatives is that you've lived up to the promises that we made those retirees. We said, come to work for us. And if you work for us for 25 years, we're going to be able to provide you with retiree health care. Yes, we had to make some changes. Yes, you have to contribute in your retirement. No, we don't. We no longer offer it as of January 1st of 2017 to new hires. So yeah, we had to tweak the program, but the people who had already on it, we're living up to our promises and we're guaranteeing that we're going to fund it. My only cautionary note, if you remember from a couple years ago, actuarial assumptions change. We came in and we're like, hey, we're 120% funded. And then we had a bad year in the market. I'm like, hey, we're 86% funded. Well, now we're 96% funded. It is market driven. It is contingent upon our investments. So it's important that we don't take our foot off the gas. This still needs to remain a priority. We still need to continue to allocate additional dollars above and beyond the annual required contribution in order to make sure that we fully fund it. Just because you hit 100%, doesn't mean we're good, we don't have to fund it any longer. Costs go up, actuarial assumptions change. We have to be prepared for that. I also have Finance Director Kathy Sostak with us tonight because Kathy is of one mind with myself and the board on how important it is to address these legacy costs. She actually works with the actuaries when she orders this. Kathy is available to answer any questions that the board might have. And Kathy, if you feel like I left anything out, by all means, can you please address it?
Good evening.
Evening. I would just like to reiterate what Superintendent Limata said, that, we still need to continue to address this over the years. We have, he mentioned back in 2015, the funding level, but just 5 years ago in 2018, we were, it had only gone up from 13 to 24%. And now within the last 5 years, we're up to 96%. A lot of that does have to do with market, what happens in the market, but you also have to remember that we currently have 51 active employees still in this plan, in addition to about 45 retirees. So those active employees are still accruing benefits every year. So this unfunded liability will continue to increase if we don't keep our foot on the pedal there and continue to make additional contributions. Just out of curiosity, I just looked today to see how much we had contributed since 2015, and we put in $15 million into this plan.
15 million?
15 million, yes. So I mean, that's,
Substantial.
yes, it is.
Was that,
Mr. Gilmer?
was that 15 or 50?
15.
1.5, yeah.
Yep.
But that's
That is-
nothing short of incredible because it shows the level of the board's commitment to really addressing this. This is, one of the single biggest reasons when you hear about municipalities who get into trouble, who end up with emergency managers, legacy costs is always one of the single biggest reasons that that occurs. That's across the country. What you guys have done through your actions has continued to say that's not going to be us, right? This is the financial and fiscal health of Grand Blanc Township. I mean, kudos to you guys because this is a huge, huge accomplishment.
Well, I think, when you realize that only 17 and even less than that in some years, 17% now, I believe, goes out of the property tax that individuals pay on their properties here in Grand Blanc Township. 17% of it, I think it was even less years ago, but by only a couple percentage, but we only get that 17% for our operating. So for us to be able to contribute $15 million towards that unfunded liability over the course of those years is pretty incredible to be able to sock that kind of money away. And as you mentioned, a lot of it's predicated on investments and how they're doing, but it also is predicated on making changes that we've been able to work with our unions to get them to go along with, in terms of our police unions, negotiating with the three of them to work with us on their retirement. All of our unions really working with us to be able to show that we're being responsible, and we want to be able to live up in years to come. I mean, 20 years from now, we want to be able to live up to what we promised. I think, the disheartening thing with some municipalities is that individuals, property taxes are barely any of it's going for current services. A lot of municipalities, a good chunk of their tax dollars are going to pay just, I look at it like a credit card that, they're just barely paying the interest on that credit card every year. And, I know this board made a commitment to doing more than just paying that interest payment or the monthly minimum on their credit card. And our goal is to, we'll never pay it down completely in our lifetime, because we still have people that are earning benefits, as you said. But I think it's, very commendable to our staff too for helping us to find ways. While our board had this as a strategic plan, our staff are the ones that, your finance department, along with Dennis leading the way, finding a way to make it happen in our budget to be able to put that kind of money away, and to make those negotiations too, to make it work. So it's been a team effort. The incredible part is most people don't understand, I think, how important this is. People would much rather see something bright and shiny built right in our park than to talk about unfunded liabilities that we're resolving those and filling a hole. But somehow, we need to make sure residents know that this is something that is going to be valuable in the future, and even now. We're doing some tremendous paying off of debts. So, it's unfortunate that we got, that years ago they made a lot of these promises and never had any provision for how they're going to put the money away, and now we're having to backfill, but that's the reality of it. Mr. Fike?
Yeah, I know, Kathy, you don't have the sheet in front of you, but this is the one sheet I just don't understand on the handout. The total OPEB liability is $28 million. And the total participants are 96. So are we saying that those 96 employees are costing us $28 million?
Yes, essentially, there's, with the active employees, which, they're accruing a benefit every year.
Yeah.
So each year of service, we take a look at how much benefit that they've accrued for, say, they're expect to work here 25 years.
Right.
Well, each year, if somebody has, 10 years in, there's, 10 25ths of that benefit has been accrued. And then there's also retirees along with beneficiaries. So it's not just, the 96 people. There are beneficiaries along with that too.
Just want to make sure.
And we continue to pay, when will it be done? When the last person or beneficiary, from their retirement, and they live, potentially 50 years beyond, or their spouse lives 50 years beyond the natural retirement age, which here they qualify at 55. Until that last beneficiary is done, that's when you're done paying. So that's why we say, you look at that $28 million, big number, greatly reduced from what they were projecting earlier, because it was that every new employee was going to continue to go into this plan, and it would continue to grow. That's why those negotiations were important. But just know that, when will we be done paying this? I don't know. Depends on, new drugs that come out and how healthy we all are. And, will it be in the year 2100? I don't know. That's the thing. That's where the actuaries come in, and they're saying the likelihood of people living longer, you're going to pay this out for another 70 years or 80 years before you're done.
It's the same thing that insurance companies have to do in terms of trying to estimate and use actuarials to try and figure out
Mortality tables.
mortality tables and what have you, so we're kind of doing the same thing here. Okay, any questions from Ms. Sostak or Mr. Limita? It's incredible what we've been able to accomplish, and we need to shout it from the rooftops that we're making progress here, because this is substantial, I think, compared to most municipalities across the state. So, great job.
Very good.
Thanks, Kathy.
Thank you. Okay, moving on to, let's see here,
Item
new business.
8A, Mr.
Yeah.
Supervisor.
We're going to, under item A, the board will consider a motion to approve Resolution 2419, which establishes an industrial development district 15-2 within Grand Blanc Township. And we discussed this a few minutes ago, that basically it allows us to apply to the state for a few tax abatements or reductions, and to bring jobs and investment to our community. So with that, anybody have any comments or concerns?
If a motion's in order, Mr. Supervisor, I'll make that motion.
All right, supported by Mr. Fike.
Supported by Mr. Fike. Okay, Trustee White.
Yes.
Trustee Fike.
Yes.
Trustee Hugo.
Yes.
Myself, yes. Treasurer Kilmer.
Yes.
Supervisor Bennett.
Yes.
6-0, motion passes.
Okay, thank you. Item B, the board will hear a presentation from our Planning and Zoning Director regarding the Planning Commission action items from 2023.
Good
Good
evening.
evening, Mr. Smith.
Good evening. So, as Mr. Bennett alluded to, this is the 2023 end-of-the-year Planning Commission itemized report. This is required by the Michigan Enabling Act. It recommends that the Planning Commission make an annual written report to the legislative body concerning its operations and the status of planning activities, including recommendations regarding actions by the legislative body related to planning and development. This document is intended to comply with the state requirement as well as provide an overview of the 2023 accomplishments. It's a very lengthy document. All of you have it in front of you. I don't want to go verbatim through it, but a couple of the highlighted items on page 2. Planning Commission, in 2023, the Planning Commission held 8 regular meetings, 1 special meeting, reviewed 2 site plans, 2 special land uses, and made 9 amendments to the zoning ordinance. Each of the 8 regular meetings included discussion, deliberation, and analysis. The Site Plan Review Committee held 6 meetings and reviewed 7 site plans. Myself approved 5 administrative site plans, maintaining a streamlined approach to ministerial review and approval. These projects are usually typically approved within 1 to 3 weeks. There are no items approved by the Planning Commission that required Zoning Board of Appeals consideration. Another highlight for us is the budget. In 2023, the Planning and Zoning budget had a surplus of over $12,000 left over at the end of the year. Code enforcement was transferred under my wing as well in April of '23, and the code enforcement budget came under budget as well. Some things that were kind of highlighted in the zoning amendments last year. We did a amendment to give myself preliminary site plan review, giving me the ability to approve preliminary site plans for an additional 6 months, and another 6 months for the planning commissioners if there was a need, if the applicant could provide a reason for an extension. If they had trouble getting through the county, if they had trouble with contractors, things of that sort. The other thing was light industrial building height. The industrial I-1 maximum height was allowed to be up to 75 feet within 150 feet of I-75, but also had to be 150 feet from any residentially zoned property. You can see that over in the Enterprise Park is where that was predominantly going to be the focus for that, also to match the regulations that are allowed in the Tech Village. It's on the south side of Baldwin Road. Some of the things that we're going to be planning to attack this year, we're going to be working on completing the items that were approved in the master plan that was done in the fall of '21. Some of those include landscaping requirements, light industrial parking requirements, and consolidating the residential and commercial zoning districts.
Landscaping requirements. Do we have any landscaping requirements for new residential at this time?
We do. We do. It's minimal depending on what the neighboring properties are, but we do have some landscaping requirements, yes.
Oh, we did, but I thought I heard somebody tell me a few weeks ago that we didn't, and I was,
There may be some other things that I may be looking at potentially. Maybe we do a bond where everybody has to have a tree in subdivision, a lawn and tree bond where you have to have so much growth in your property and you have to have a tree planted. Just a bond, you get the money back eventually, but we want to make sure that the township keeps the landscaping, so that way when a new development comes in, they just can't wipe out all of the trees and fauna on the site. They need to put it back in some form.
okay. Any question, Mr. Smith? Another question, Jeremy, we have things in place that would limit or restrict distance between similar types of business, right? Like daycare center, home daycare centers, they've got to be like 1,500 feet away from other home daycare centers.
Yes, certain commercial uses do have requirements that they can only have so many same type businesses within so many feet. Used car lots, daycare centers, and residential, things of that sort. Not everything is like that, but
Right.
we do have some,
Certain businesses.
correct?
I'm just thinking in terms of, some of our corners that, we have gas stations on a few, but if we were to have, multiple gas stations all in the same intersection, one of them's probably not going to survive, and we're going to end up looking at an empty, gas station for the next 20 years.
Yes.
So it could be viable, Mr. Laddie, to put restrictions on something like that and say that, a gas station would have to be half a mile or a mile away from another one or what have you, or,
That is something that is possible.
That's something we can look into
Okay.
this year. Mhm.
I'd like to research that and see if that's something that we could possibly look at doing, just, and at first blush, some of, the ordinances we have might seem kind of restrictive, but on the other hand, it also keeps us from having some blight too. I think the used car lot, you drive into some communities and all the spare corners are taken up with used car lots, which starts to look to be a little bit too much when you have, cars parked every which way.
Yep.
I don't mind having used car lots, but having them on every corner that, has a vacant building, much.
Yeah, diversity in businesses would be nice, yes.
What's that?
Diversity in businesses would be nice, yes.
Correct. So, and I think we're getting some diversity in those businesses. Any questions for Mr. Smith? Okay, well, we appreciate the work that you're doing, and we look forward to hearing more.
Excellent, thank you.
Okay.
Item 8C, Mr. Supervisor.
Okay. Item 8C, the board will consider a motion to approve zoning case number 674L, industrial parking spaces.
So on the April 11th Planning Commission meeting, there was a public hearing for the zoning amendment to reduce the parking space requirements for light industrial manufacturing testing labs, research and development centers, and warehousing land uses. The Planning Commission recommended approval to the Township Board with a 6-0 vote, and myself would recommend a motion for approval based on the above-mentioned text amendment as presented. In your packets, you have a memo from Giffords Webster explaining this in great detail. The short version of it is that in a light industrial manufacturing type use, as the building gets bigger, the number of required parking spaces also gets bigger, but not necessarily the number of employees needed for that business. So what we've tried to do is limit the sea of parking, if you will. So this way, the applicant can give us a number of the number of employees on peak shift plus 20%, and that should cover any changeover in any kind of shift change, if you will. So that way, we don't have to have land bank parking on site plans. We can just say they need X amount of parking spaces, It's the minimum that they need, plus 20% extra, just in case they need it. And it cuts down on the number of impervious surface that we require. Helps with drainage on most sites and things of that sort. So it's a needed benefit. The last couple site plans that we've approved, we had to have land bank parking in there due to the high number that's required and because of the size of their building.
Any questions, concerns? No, I think it's very wise to make that change.
Is a motion in order, Mr. Supervisor?
Actually,
Just a question, these businesses that had to put in too much parking, can they, if we change this, can they go in and reduce it if they want? I mean, I don't know how it would benefit them to just continue to have excess parking. I mean, I'm not saying it'll necessarily be used for anything productive, but.
They could. Like I said, the last couple, they had land bank parking built into it, so they may never have to do that land bank parking now due to this change.
okay. All right, you making the motion, Mr. Hugo? Okay, Mr. Hugo makes the
Motion by Hugo,
supported by Fike.
supported by Fike on item 8C. Trustee Hugo.
Yes.
Trustee Fike.
Yes.
Trustee White.
Yes.
Treasurer Kilmer.
Yes.
Myself, yes. Supervisor Bennett.
Yes.
6-0, motion passes.
Thank you.
Mr. Smith. Okay, future agenda items, we're going to be discussing Tech Village and the growth of our DDA, which is moving right along. In terms of board reports, Ms. Hugo, anything to report on?
Our meeting in May is canceled, and our meeting in June is canceled as well, just due to lack of agenda items.
Okay, very good. Mr. Kilmer, anything?
No.
Okay. Clerk Robertson?
Just briefly, Mr. Supervisor, we had a small election last Tuesday. One of our precincts is in the Goodrich School District. 541 votes were cast, 517 by absentee ballot, and 24 at the polls on election day.
Very good. Okay. And the state was in here updating all the equipment for the upcoming election.
Everything went off without a hitch.
Okay. Mr. Fike, anything to report on?
Nothing to report.
Mr. White? Nope. Just a couple of things. One is, you probably have read in the news that our 911 consortium, the county did approve the full $3 per month on the surcharge to go before the voters, so that's good. It will definitely help with paying for the increased costs of 911. Our new playground out at Bicentennial Park, I was just talking to some of the park staff, and they have demoed the old playground, and they will be beginning construction shortly. Probably over the next several weeks, you'll see it built, but fabulous playground that will be all-inclusive in terms of all abilities, so that's going to be a fabulous addition. Also attended a great event today. If any of you in the future are invited, I'd encourage you to go. It was the Kiwanis Club of Flint sponsored the Student Scholar Athlete of the Year awards luncheon out at Genesis Banquet Center, and had some of the top scholar athletes from around the county being recognized today. So with that, Mr. Laddie, anything to report on?
No, sir.
Mr. Limata?
Just a couple things. First and foremost, we received news from our assessor of record that our AMAR audit, which for our assessing department means every 5 years or so, you get selected by the State Tax Commission, and they come and make sure that the things we're doing as assessing properties are correct, proper, following the right requirements of the State Tax Commission. We passed it with flying colors, so that's awesome news. That lets the board know that your assessing department is doing the things that they're supposed to be doing. I would explain to you what AMAR, it's like the auditing of minimum assessment records or something like that, but it's AMAR audit at any rate. We have started initial interviews for the position for the Treasury Department. We had 2 candidates in today. I think we have a couple tomorrow, 2 or 3, and then some next week. So those initial rounds had a couple in. Went very, very well. We had some really good candidates. I'm happy to say we'll keep moving that along.
How many candidates total did you say before, Dennis?
It was like 20 or
Yeah, that's incredible.
yeah, it was good. It's more than we normally have. Again, we're trying to find somebody with some treasury experience because I think it will help in the training process. But you know, everybody does things a little bit differently, and we want to make sure. So we'll get through this first round, and then we'll start to schedule the second round where it gets a little more technical, making sure that we're bringing in somebody who fits our culture, and then also is technically proficient or can get there in a relatively short period of time. Again, we've got, you know, Deputy Treasurer Nancy Stilson. You know, she's not trying to run out the door. She has agreed to assist in the training, so I think we're in good shape. We have plenty of time. The last conversation I had with Nancy, and maybe Treasurer Kilmer knows something different, but she wanted to be here at least through next spring. So I guess, you know, that's going to give us time to make that transition as smooth as possible.
Very good.
Also, collective bargaining agreement negotiations. We will last for a closed session at your next board meeting on the 28th. I will have my initial round kicking off with your Michigan Association of Firefighters. That is your part-time paid-on-call firefighters union. We'll go into negotiations with them, so we'll have to have a little strategy session. I'm going to put some information together next Monday. We'll have the current CBA reviewed by legal to make sure that we've got, you know, it's been 5 years since we negotiated with them. We want to make sure that those are updated and include any changes in federal and state employment law. And then I got an email yesterday from your full-time union, the International Association of Firefighters Union, that they would like to begin negotiations. Their contract doesn't expire until October, but they'd just like to get an early start on it. That's fine with me, quite frankly, if we're already going to be in negotiations with the part-time union. Might as well continue those. We did do a salary wage survey, like we do every 5 years or so with everybody. We did it for firefighters. You know that my recommendation remains the same, that we try to be in that above the 90th percentile for all of our employees. We've got some work to do with our firefighters, but again, it's why it's a negotiation. We look at it and we try to get them so that we're keeping current, especially with the investment that the board has made in Fire Station number 2 and the ongoing Fire Station number 1. Speaking of Fire Station number 1, we went through a 5.5-hour page-by-page turn through the construction documents yesterday. And yes, it's as brutal as it sounds. And literally page by page through all those construction plans, everything from plumbing, electrical, HVAC, camera systems, lighting, furniture, carpet. We still have more to go, but we're getting to the end. We wanted to have that out for bids in June of this year, and it looks like we are on track. And it's a process, but we're nearing the end where we're going to get it bid and start moving it forward. I'll feel a lot better once we hit that milestone. But it's exciting, and it's coming to fruition quickly.
Very good.
That's it. Oh, one more thing. Tornado settlement. In case you're wondering, we are getting to the end of that. We had a pretty productive Teams meeting today with our insurance carrier. We're really down to about a $1,500 dispute. They use something in the insurance industry called the brittleness test on shingles. I argue that the brittleness test is not science at all, but insurance company jargon, because if Trustee Fike goes up and bends the shingles to determine the brittleness, or it's Trustee Hugo there's no exact science behind how you would determine. And if you send an expert up who's being paid by the insurance company to determine the brittleness of your shingles that were impacted by the tornado, it just seems to me that
Could be a little bit
if you
biased.
can't prove to me the science and you can't send me to training school to say I'm certified, then I say I conducted my own brittleness tests and the entire side that was hit by the tornado needs to be replaced. But really, it's down to like $1,500 for the whole $100 and some thousand dollars worth of damage. I feel very good. From where we started out to where we are now, I think we will have this thing accomplished probably within a week, and it will be, we're ordering the stuff, we're going out for bids, we're going to get those things done. It'll come to you, but we think that we may just, once we've settled on the amount for the shingle roofs, we'd already started replacing with metal roofing. Now may be the time, because with what we get back from the insurance company, we could invest the $50,000. We'd already started to do it. The pavilion that was completely destroyed had one of the metal roofs on it, obviously, so that'll get replaced, but I think we might want to do the others
I think so too.
at this time.
Yep. Like the right color.
I'll leave that to the board.
Don't.
Hey, is a motion to adjourn
Yes.
in order, Mr. Supervisor?
Mr. Clerk Robertson.
Then I will make that motion.
Okay, supported by Mr. Fike. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
We are adjourned at 6:41 PM.
Thank you, everyone.